I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
While there's no lack of beautiful cars that have emerged from the Ferrari factory, the 250 California Spyder is not only drop-dead gorgeous, but has long been hailed as perhaps the finest motoring experience imaginable, epitomizing la dolce vita, or the sweet life. John von Neumann from California and Luigi Canetti from New York were two of the largest Ferrari dealers back in the day. They had this idea that the Ferrari market needed a sports car that was also a convertible, especially in America where they were based. And so they went to the Ferrari factory and tried to convince Enzo to build this car. And basically Enzo was a little hesitant to do that because he thought that true sports cars should not be convertibles. But eventually von Neumann and Canetti were able to convince him that the American market needed a true performance car, but also a convertible at the same time. So this car is actually based off of the 250 Tour de France, which was a very successful race car and performance car. So it's based off of it, but built specifically for the American market because everyone thought that Americans, and it's true, Americans love convertibles. So that's how this car came to be. Everyone who's seen the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off has immediately been able to recognize this as a California Spyder from the movie and has probably had the dream of driving around causing mischief just like Ferris did in the movie.
The 1961 Ferrari 250 GT California.
It is his fault he didn't lock the garage.
Now in that movie, the car was a replica and it had a Ford V8 engine. If you listen closely, you can hear that American muscle car growl from the car in the movie, and you can kind of immediately tell that it is not a real Ferrari. Plus the body has some slight differences that are not quite accurate. This car is also a replica, but it's built from all Ferrari parts. Somebody took a 332 plus 2, the engine, transmission, chassis, everything, and rebodied it into the California Spyder. So you get that real Colombo V12, you get all the correct Ferrari parts that gives you that real California Spyder driving experience. But instead of about up to $20 million, which is what a real one goes for nowadays, you're looking at closer to $1 million, which is still a lot, but a lot more rational than $20 million. There are a couple very easy ways to tell the difference between a short wheelbase and a long wheelbase. If you're looking at a California Spyder head on, then you can tell from the headlights. So if it's a covered headlight car, the short wheelbase usually have this chrome shroud around it, whereas the long wheelbase normally do not. On the hood on a short wheelbase, it's recessed down. So you see these lines right here, you can see that it's recessed into the hood a bit. Whereas on a long wheelbase car, it's not recessed. So it's more kind of the scoop is sitting on top of the hood versus recessed in. And then you can also tell the difference from the side of the car. So if you look at the side louvers, on this one, it has 2 slats and 3 holes. So it has 3 louvers. But on a long wheelbase, it would be 4 louvers. So it has 3 slats and then 4 holes in between. If you're looking at the car from the back, you can also tell from the taillights. So the taillights on these cars on the short wheelbase is one piece of plastic with chrome around it, but on the long wheelbase, it has a slightly different shape and it also has a piece of chrome through the center of it that gives it a different look. So pretty much no matter what angle you look at these cars from, you can tell whether it's a short wheelbase or a long wheelbase. This car is an extremely accurate replica, and it's almost impossible to tell just from the outside that it's not a real California Spyder. One of the big kind of inaccuracies about this car would be the engine. So as I mentioned, it's built from a 332 plus 2, and a real California Spyder would have the 250 engine, whereas this one has the 330 engine. But that's definitely not a downside, because the 250 engines were 250 cc's per cylinder times the 12 cylinders, so you get the displacement, and they produced about 280 horsepower. And the 330 engines are slightly larger displacement at 330 cc's per cylinder, and they produce about 300 horsepower. So you still get the Ferrari Colombo V12 engine, the sound, the driving experience, but just with a boost in power. The interior on this car is just so timelessly classy. I mean, it's just the leather and everything is gorgeous, and I always love wooden steering wheels. It just feels so elegant driving around. But I do have to say that the pedal box on this car is quite small. So for me, I grew up driving these kinds of cars, and I'm kind of used to the smaller pedal box and the pedals being very close together. But if you have big feet or it's not something you're used to, it's definitely going to be a bit of a challenge at first, because they are quite close together. And then another thing about this car is I am only 5'7", which is pretty average height, and I fit quite nicely in this car, but I do have the seat all the way back, which usually I have to pull the seat forward a little bit, and I'm still pretty close to the steering wheel and a little up there with my legs on the pedals and everything. So the mechanic who worked on this car is 6 foot tall, and he can drive it without an issue. But I would have to say that if you're over 6 foot tall, you're going to be a little too cramped in this car. And so you would definitely want to opt for the long wheelbase version instead of the short wheelbase version, because it does have a little bit more room in the interior. I know that some people are very opposed to replicas. They basically think it's blasphemy to take a Ferrari and hack it up to create another car. But in my personal opinion, I love replicas like this one because you get that real driving experience of a California Spyder. Earlier this year, a real short wheelbase California Spyder sold for over $18 million. And that's extremely unattainable to most people. So if you want a car like the California Spyder, but don't have $18 million to spend, then a replica like this one built from all Ferrari parts that gives you that same driving experience is a great alternative. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and learned a little something about the California Spyder. If you like this, then please subscribe and stay tuned. We got a lot more coming very soon. You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.